In every international fraud case that has ever ended in multiple arrests, one rule has remained constant. The first arrest is never the end of the story. It is the beginning of a wider examination into networks, affiliations, and financial ecosystems that allowed the crime to function in the first place. Authorities do not stop at who pressed the keyboard. They follow who structured the money, who helped move it, who provided legitimacy, and who stood close enough to benefit. This is the stage Ghana is currently in. Following the arrest and extradition process surrounding Abu Trica, investigators have shifted focus from individual conduct to network exposure. This is standard procedure in FBI-led cases. Once a primary suspect is secured, the next phase involves mapping everyone connected to that individual through money, business, assets, and communication. It is during this phase that new names begin to surface quietly. One of the names now appearing in investigative discussions is David G.H., not as a street rumor, but as a person with strong business affiliation to Abu Trica. Wicked Blogger Ghana is not saying David G.H. has committed a crime. What we are saying, and what intelligence procedures support, is that strong business proximity to an indicted individual automatically triggers scrutiny. This is not opinion. This is how financial crime investigations are designed. In fraud cases involving millions of dollars, investigators are less interested in lifestyle and more interested in infrastructure. Who helped launder funds? Who helped store value? Who helped convert proceeds into assets? Who helped create businesses that appeared legitimate on the surface but functioned as buffers beneath? Business affiliation is more dangerous than friendship. Friends can deny knowledge. Business partners leave records. Contracts, transfers, shared investments, co-ownership, proxy arrangements, third-party holdings. These are the things investigators care about. They do not need public bragging. They need paper, data, and patterns. Once Abu Trica's financial ecosystem came under review, it became inevitable that anyone who operated closely with him in business would enter the analytical frame. This is not punishment. It is process. The FBI does not guess. It cross-checks. If two individuals show repeated financial interaction during the same period alleged criminal proceeds were generated, that interaction becomes relevant. If assets appear suddenly without independent income explanation, that relevance deepens. If communication records align with transaction spikes, the scrutiny intensifies. This is why Wicked Blogger Ghana has consistently warned that association risk is the silent destroyer in fraud cases. Many people currently serving sentences abroad never directly scammed anyone. Their mistake was proximity, facilitation, or willful blindness. Willful blindness is a legal concept many underestimate. It means benefiting from suspicious activity while deliberately avoiding knowledge of its source. Courts do not accept "I didn't ask" as a defense when evidence shows you benefited. Investigators now operate with time on their side. Once a primary suspect is detained, pressure increases. Cooperation becomes more likely. Statements are given. Devices are unlocked. Accounts are analyzed. When cooperation begins, files expand. This is where secondary exposure often occurs. Wicked Blogger Ghana understands how uncomfortable this reality is for those who believe silence equals safety. It does not. Silence is neutral. Evidence speaks louder. It is also important to understand that international investigations do not move emotionally. They move strategically. Arrests are not rushed. Files are built until airtight. When action comes, it comes with overwhelming evidence, not speculation. This is why people often say, "We didn't see it coming." The truth is, it was coming quietly all along. Another dangerous misconception is that hiding or reducing public appearance removes risk. It does not. Investigations do not rely on club sightings or Instagram posts. They rely on banking systems, telecom records, corporate filings, and international cooperation. Once a person becomes relevant to an investigation, relevance does not expire because of silence. David G.H.'s name appearing in investigative conversations does not mean guilt. It means relevance. And relevance in FBI-linked cases is not something to dismiss casually. Wicked Blogger Ghana is careful with its reporting. We do not announce arrests prematurely. We do not declare guilt. But we do not ignore patterns either. History has shown that when strong business affiliations exist around a primary suspect, follow-up scrutiny is inevitable. This same process played out in previous cases involving Ghanaian and Nigerian fraud networks. One arrest led to another. One corporation led to multiple indictments. One extradition opened several files. Those paying attention understand that fraud cases are not storms. They are seasons. As of now, the season is not over. Authorities are reviewing structures, not personalities. They are reviewing flows, not friendships. And anyone whose financial history overlaps significantly with an indicted individual should understand the seriousness of that overlap. Wicked Blogger Ghana will continue to report responsibly, verify information, and avoid reckless declarations. But we will not pretend the system is asleep. Business ties matter. Money trails matter. Timing matters. And history has proven repeatedly that when investigations reach this phase, developments follow. One aspect many people outside law enforcement do not understand is that once a case reaches the level of international cooperation, it stops being about personalities and starts being about systems. Individuals are only important insofar as they fit into systems. Who controlled what? Who moved what? Who benefited when money moved? Who stood as a gatekeeper between dirty funds and clean assets? This is why business affiliation becomes a focal point. In fraud investigations, especially those involving romance scams and wire fraud, money rarely stays in one place. It moves fast, often through layers designed to confuse, delay, or obscure. These layers include shell businesses, trusted associates, informal partnerships, and sometimes legitimate enterprises that unknowingly or knowingly absorb tainted funds. Investigators are trained to separate coincidence from coordination. One transaction can be ignored, a pattern cannot. When financial relationships repeat, align in timing, and mirror the growth of illicit proceeds, they become impossible to dismiss. This is the lens through which authorities now view networks connected to Trica. Wicked Blogger Ghana has learned that once a primary suspect is detained, investigators begin what is known internally as network stress testing. They test explanations, they test timelines, they test financial logic. They ask whether income sources realistically justify asset accumulation. Where answers fail, scrutiny intensifies. People often underestimate how forensic modern financial analysis has become. Investigators don't just look at balances. They look at velocity, frequency, counterparties, and behavioral changes. They compare pre-income behavior to post-income behavior. Sudden lifestyle leaps without structural explanation are red flags, not flexes. Business affiliation plays directly into this because businesses provide cover. A business can explain cars, it can explain travel, it can explain property, but only if the numbers make sense. When a business exists mostly on paper, or when its declared revenue cannot support its visible outputs, it stops being protection and starts being evidence. This is why investigators care less about street rumors and more about tax filings, corporate records, and banking compliance reports. Once an entity appears in multiple suspicious transaction reports, its owners and partners automatically attract attention. Wicked Blogger Ghana has consistently warned that the loudest defense is often silence, but silence alone does not dissolve exposure. In fact, silence sometimes signals awareness, and awareness itself can be telling. Another mistake people make is assuming that if they did not personally scam victims, they are safe. That assumption is wrong. Fraud law does not only punish direct actors, it punishes conspirators, facilitators, and beneficiaries. The law looks at intent, knowledge, and benefit. Even indirect benefits can be enough if awareness can be shown. This is why investigators look at communications, messages, calls, emails, business planning discussions. Even deleted conversations can often be recovered. What was said matters less than what was implied. What was avoided matters just as much as what was discussed. In many past cases, secondary suspects believed they were untouchable because they never pressed send on scam messages. That belief did not survive court scrutiny. Judges care about contribution, not excuses. Wicked Blogger Ghana also understands the psychology of panic that follows a major arrest. When one person is taken, those connected often scramble to restructure stories, assets, and narratives. But restructuring after the fact is itself suspicious. Investigators track changes just as closely as original activity. Another layer people overlook is cooperation dynamics. Once a primary suspect faces real prison time, priorities shift, loyalty weakens, self-preservation takes over, cooperation becomes attractive. When cooperation begins, investigators gain confirmation, context, and clarity that no external analysis can match. This is often when secondary names solidify into formal subjects of investigation. The FBI, like most serious agencies, does not announce interest prematurely. They observe, they document, they corroborate. Public silence does not mean inactivity. It usually means preparation. Wicked Blogger Ghana's role is not to inflame fear, but to highlight reality. Reality says that strong business affiliation with an indicted individual is never neutral. It is either explainable or it is problematic. There is no middle ground. Those who believe they can simply ride it out misunderstand how long these cases last. International fraud cases often unfold over years, not weeks. Evidence does not decay quickly. Digital records are durable. Financial data is persistent. Another critical factor is jurisdictional reach. When US victims are involved, US courts assert authority aggressively. Cooperation with local agencies removes many traditional barriers. Once that door opens, it rarely closes quietly. This is why Wicked Blogger Ghana keeps emphasizing that Ghana is in a new phase. The tolerance threshold has dropped. The cost of embarrassment is too high. Authorities are incentivized to act decisively, not cautiously. People sometimes ask why certain names surface earlier than others. The answer is simple. Visibility plus proximity equals vulnerability. When someone is visible and close to alleged illicit flows, they naturally attract attention faster. This is not personal. It is procedural. David G.H.'s appearance in investigative conversations reflects this reality. It does not mean outcome. It means process. And process is relentless once it starts. History offers countless examples. In nearly every major fraud case, secondary arrests or legal consequences followed months after the primary arrest. The delay was not mercy. It was preparation. Wicked Blogger Ghana is careful to avoid sensationalism. We do not declare futures. We analyze patterns. And patterns suggest that scrutiny widens before it narrows. For anyone watching this unfold, the lesson is not fear. The lesson is clarity. Understand how association works. Understand how money trails function. Understand that silence is not invisibility. As investigations deepen, explanations will be demanded. Some will satisfy, some will not. Outcomes depend on evidence, not opinions. Wicked Blogger Ghana will continue to observe, verify, and report responsibly. We will not rush narratives. We will not fabricate outcomes. But we will not ignore realities either. When developments occur, they will speak for themselves. Until then, the only honest statement is this: business ties to indicted individuals are never irrelevant. Investigations do not pause for comfort, and the system rarely stops at one name. We are watching.